The fluorescent lights of St. Gabriel Hospital flickered above Isabella Martinez as her vision blurred. Her hands trembled while checking the vitals of her last patient, the numbers on the monitor swimming before her eyes. 12 hours into a double shift, running on nothing but black coffee and sheer determination, her body finally decided it had enough. "Nurse Martinez, we need you in—" The voice of Dr. Chen faded into white noise. Isabella's knees buckled. The clipboard clattered to the floor. She felt herself falling, the cold hospital tiles rushing up to meet her, when suddenly there were arms, strong, steady, impossibly warm, catching her mid-collapse. "I've got you," a deep voice murmured in her ear, accented and commanding. Through her fading consciousness, Isabella registered expensive cologne, the rustle of what had to be a designer suit, and eyes so dark they seemed to pull her into their depths. The man holding her wasn't hospital staff. He moved with lethal grace, carrying her as if she weighed nothing, his jaw set with grim determination. "Sir, you can't," someone protested. "Try to stop me." The words were soft, but carried an unmistakable threat. That was when Isabella saw the tattoo peeking from beneath his collar. Intricate, deliberate, unmistakably Yakuza-inspired. Her last coherent thought before darkness claimed her completely was that she'd just been caught by someone far more dangerous than the floor could ever be. 3 weeks earlier, Isabella Martinez had thought her biggest problem was deciding between paying her electricity bill or buying groceries that would last until her next paycheck. Standing in her cramped Mission District apartment, staring at the stack of overdue notices on her kitchen counter, she'd laughed bitterly at her own naivety. Life, as always, had bigger plans for her struggles. "Bella, you're working another double?" Her roommate, Jasmine, appeared in the kitchen doorway, concern etched across her face. "That's the 4th one this week. Rent's not going to pay itself." Isabella tied her thick, curly hair into a practical bun, her dark brown skin still damp from the shower. She grabbed her nurse's badge, the photo showing a version of herself that still smiled easily, taken 3 years ago, before life had ground her down into someone who survived rather than lived. "You're going to kill yourself at this rate." "Dramatic much?" Isabella forced a smile, though they both knew Jasmine wasn't wrong. "I'm fine. Strong as an ox, remember? Comes with the Caribbean genes." Her abuela had always said the women in their family were made of iron and sugarcane, sweet when needed, unbreakable always. Isabella clung to that heritage, to the strength of generations of women who'd survived worse than unpaid bills and exhaustion. Saint. Gabriel Hospital's emergency room never slept, and neither, apparently, did Isabella. She arrived for her 7 p.m. shift already feeling the weight of the morning shift she'd pulled just hours before. The attending physician, Dr. Sarah Chen, gave her a worried look but said nothing. They were understaffed, overworked, and everyone was running on fumes. "Trauma coming in," a nurse called out. "GSW, male, late 20s. Gunshot wound." Isabella snapped into professional mode, fatigue momentarily forgotten as the ambulance bay doors burst open. The patient was unconscious, blood soaking through makeshift bandages. But what caught Isabella's attention wasn't the wound, it was the tattoos covering his arms, intricate designs that spoke of affiliations she'd learned to recognize working in this hospital. Gang member, probably involved in whatever turf war was currently painting San Francisco's streets red. "Let's move, Doctor." Chen barked. For the next 6 hours, Isabella worked on autopilot, treating a steady stream of patients that ranged from the mundane to the traumatic. A child with a fever, a construction worker with a broken arm, another gang member with knife wounds who refused to say how he'd gotten them. Each patient blurred into the next, a parade of human suffering that Isabella had long since learned to compartmentalize. Around 2 a.m. during a rare lull, Isabella found herself in the break room, staring at a cup of coffee she was too tired to drink. "You look like death warmed over," said Marcus, one of the ER doctors, dropping into the chair beside her. "When's the last time you had a day off?" "What's a day off?" Isabella tried to joke, but her voice came out flat. "I'm serious, Bella. You're no good to these patients if you collapse." "I'm fine." The lie tasted bitter on her tongue. She wasn't fine. She hadn't been fine in months, maybe years, but fine was all she could afford to be, so fine was what she told everyone, including herself. The rest of the shift passed in a haze. More patients, more trauma, more blood. Somewhere around hour 10 of her double shift, Isabella treated a man with a dislocated shoulder who had the same tattoos as the earlier GSW patient. She didn't ask questions, learned long ago that some things were healthier not to know. What she didn't realize was that someone was watching. Someone who made it his business to know everything that happened in his territory, including which nurse had steady hands and kind eyes, and who'd treated 3 of his enemies in the past month without ever realizing the significance of the ink decorating their skin. Wu Jin Baek stood in the shadows of the hospital parking garage, his phone pressed to his ear as his second-in-command, Min, delivered the evening's report. "The Jade Dragon Syndicate hit another one of our shipments," Min said, frustration evident in his voice. "3rd one this month. They're getting bolder." "And our response?" West's voice was calm, controlled, the deadly kind of calm that made seasoned criminals nervous. "Handled. But boss, there's something else. That nurse, the one who's been treating their wounded. I'm aware." West's eyes tracked the emergency room entrance. He'd come to check on Ji-hoon, one of his men who'd been injured in tonight's skirmish, only to find the young man gushing about the beautiful nurse who'd treated his injuries without judgment or questions. "Should we be concerned? She might be—" "She's not involved." West cut him off. He'd had Isabella Martinez investigated the moment Ji-hoon mentioned her. Single, struggling financially, working herself to death to make ends meet. No criminal connections, no suspicious associations. Just an exhausted woman trying to survive in a city that chewed up people like her and spit them out. Still, the fact that she'd treated multiple Jade Dragon members without knowing it made her a variable. In West's world, variables were dangerous. "Keep monitoring the situation," he instructed, "but don't approach her, not yet." Ending the call, West moved deeper into the shadows as Isabella Martinez emerged from the hospital, her scrubs rumpled, her steps unsteady with exhaustion. She pulled her jacket tighter against the San Francisco chill, and West noticed the way she swayed slightly, catching herself against the wall. She was going to collapse soon. It was written in every line of her body, in the dark circles under her eyes, in the way she moved like someone running on nothing but willpower. West told himself he was keeping tabs on a potential security risk, that his interest was purely professional, strategic. He told himself a lot of things that night, watching Isabella Martinez disappear into the fog-shrouded streets. None of them were quite the truth. Back in her apartment, Isabella collapsed onto her second-hand couch without bothering to change out of her scrubs. Jasmine had left a plate of food covered in plastic wrap, rice and beans, her abuela's recipe that Jasmine had learned to make. The gesture brought tears to Isabella's eyes, though she was too tired to cry properly. She managed 3 bites before exhaustion won. Sleep claimed her there on the couch, still in her scrubs, her phone alarm already set for the morning shift that would start in just 4 hours. In her dreams, she was falling, but strong arms always caught her. She couldn't see the face of her savior, could only feel the steady beat of his heart and smell expensive cologne mixed with something darker, more dangerous. She woke with a start, her alarm blaring, the dream already fading. Another shift, another day, another step closer to the edge she'd been dancing on for months. Isabella Martinez had no way of knowing that in exactly 3 weeks she'd finally take that step. And when she fell, the arms that caught her would belong to the most dangerous man in San Francisco, a man who, once he held her, would never let her go again. The problem with working in a hospital, Isabella had learned, was that you saw people at their absolute worst and most vulnerable. You learned to read pain in faces, to understand what wasn't being said, to recognize when someone was hiding something. Which was why, when the man with the expensive suit and cold eyes walked into the ER carrying an unconscious young man, Isabella knew immediately that this wasn't a typical patient drop-off. It was her 14th day working doubles. She'd lost count of how many hours she'd been awake. "He needs help," the man said, his accented English precise and controlled. He laid the unconscious man, barely more than a boy really, maybe 20, on the gurney with surprising gentleness. Motorcycle accident. Isabella's trained eye caught the details the man's story didn't explain. The defensive wounds on the boy's knuckles, the pattern of bruising that suggested a beating rather than an accident, and most tellingly, the partial tattoo visible on the boy's collarbone, a dragon's tail in jade green ink. "I'll get the doctor," she said, choosing not to question the obvious lie. She'd learned that lesson well, but as she turned away, the man's hand caught her wrist, not roughly, but firmly enough to stop her. Isabella's heart jumped into her throat. His touch was warm, his grip confident but not painful. "Take care of him," he said, and something in his voice made it sound less like a request and more like a command from someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Please." The last word seemed to cost him something. Up close, Isabella could see him properly for the first time. Korean, she guessed, probably early 30s, devastatingly handsome in that sharp-edged way that made you think of expensive whiskey and bad decisions. His black hair was styled perfectly despite the late hour, and his suit probably cost more than her entire month's rent. But it was his eyes that caught her, dark, intense, and holding secrets she definitely didn't want to know. "I'll do my best," Isabella managed, pulling her wrist free. "That's all I can promise." Something flickered in those dark eyes, approval maybe, or respect. "Your best is all anyone can ask." He left before she could respond, disappearing into the night like smoke, leaving Isabella with a patient who definitely hadn't been in a motorcycle accident and the lingering warmth of his touch on her wrist. Dr. Chen arrived, took one look at the patient, and sighed. "Another one?" "Motorcycle accident," Isabella repeated dutifully, though they both knew better. They stabilized the young man, broken ribs, concussion, various contusions, and admitted him for observation. He woke briefly during treatment, mumbled something in Korean, and looked at Isabella with frightened eyes that reminded her of her younger cousin. "You're safe," she told him softly, adjusting his IV. "Rest now." Whether he understood English or just her tone, he relaxed slightly and drifted back to sleep. Isabella didn't see the man in the expensive suit again that night, but she felt him somehow, like a presence watching from the shadows. It was ridiculous, paranoid thinking brought on by exhaustion, yet the feeling persisted through her entire shift. 3 days later, a delivery arrived at the nurse's station. A massive arrangement of orchids in shades of white and purple, elegant and clearly expensive. The card, written in precise handwriting, simply said, "Thank you for your best. W." "Someone's got an admirer," Jasmine teased when Isabella showed her the card that evening. They were sharing cheap takeout in Isabella's apartment, a rare night when neither of them was working. "It's from a patient's family," Isabella protested, though her cheeks warmed. "Just a thank you." "And I'm the Queen of England." Jasmine grinned, stealing an egg roll from Isabella's plate. "What's he look like?" "I don't even know if the W is the patient or the family member who brought him in." Isabella stabbed at her fried rice, trying to ignore the flutter in her stomach at the memory of those dark eyes. "Besides, I don't have time for whatever you're implying." "Girl, you don't have time for anything except work and more work. When's the last time you did something just for yourself?" Isabella couldn't remember. Every waking moment was consumed by work, bills, survival. The idea of doing something frivolous, something just for pleasure, felt as foreign as a vacation to Paris. "Exactly," Jasmine said, reading the answer in Isabella's silence. "You're 26, not 66. You're allowed to have a life, Bella." But life, Isabella had learned, was a luxury she couldn't afford. The young man, whose name she'd learned from his chart was Min Jun, was discharged 3 days later. Isabella was checking his vitals one last time when the door opened and the man with the expensive suit walked in. In daylight, he was even more striking. The afternoon sun streaming through the window caught the sharp angles of his face, the perfect cut of his charcoal suit, and, when he moved, the edge of a tattoo on his neck, partially hidden by his collar. "How is he?" he asked, his eyes finding Isabella immediately. "Recovering well. He'll need to rest and follow up with his primary care physician." Isabella kept her voice professional, clinical, even as her pulse kicked up. "Are you family?" A slight smile touched his lips, there and gone so fast she almost missed it. "Something like that." Minjun sat up in bed, bowing his head respectfully. "Youngnim," he said, the Korean honorific clear even to Isabella's untrained ear. "In English, Min," the man said, though his tone was gentle. "We have company." "Sorry, boss." Minjun looked chagrined. "I mean, thank you for coming." "Boss." Isabella's stomach dropped. She'd suspected, of course, but having it confirmed was different. This man was someone important in whatever organization these tattoos represented. Someone dangerous. "I should let you two talk," she said, moving toward the door. "Wait." Again that commanding voice that expected obedience. "I wanted to thank you personally. The flowers. You received them." "I did. They were unnecessary, but beautiful. Thank you." Isabella kept her hand on the door handle, ready to flee. He moved closer, and Isabella caught his scent. Expensive cologne underlaid with something else, something that made her think of crisp winter nights and dangerous promises. He reached into his jacket, and Isabella's breath caught, but he only pulled out a business card. "If you ever need anything," he said, pressing it into her hand. His fingers brushed hers, and electricity sparked up her arm. "Anything at all. Call this number." The card was simple. Expensive cardstock with just a phone number embossed in black. No name, no business, nothing else. "I don't even know your name," Isabella said before she could stop herself. "West," he replied, and that almost smile touched his lips again. "Call me West." It wasn't until later, after her shift ended and she was riding the bus home through San Francisco's foggy streets, that Isabella really looked at the card. She turned it over and over in her fingers, feeling the weight of it, the quality. She should throw it away. Whatever West was involved in, whoever he was, wasn't something she needed in her life. She had enough problems without adding a crime boss to the list, but she didn't throw it away. Instead, she tucked it into her wallet behind her nursing license, where it pressed against her license like a secret, like a promise, like a door she knew she shouldn't open but couldn't quite resist. That night, Isabella dreamed of falling again, but this time she saw the face of the man who caught her. Dark eyes, expensive cologne, a voice that commanded, and a touch that burned. She woke, gasping, her heart racing, telling herself it was just a dream, just exhaustion playing tricks on her mind. She almost believed it. Almost. Across the city, in a penthouse overlooking San Francisco Bay, West stood at his floor-to-ceiling windows, a glass of whiskey in his hand, and Isabella Martinez's face in his mind. He'd run a deeper background check after their second meeting. Single mother, he'd learned. No, that was wrong. Single woman, no children, but taking care of her elderly grandmother in a nursing home across town. Hence the constant double shifts, the exhaustion, the desperation. She was good. Not just at her job, but good. Kind eyes, steady hands. No judgment for the criminals and gangsters who cycled through her ER. She treated everyone the same, with compassion and competence. It had been a long time since West had met someone genuinely good. It had been even longer since he'd wanted to keep something good close to him. "Boss?" Min appeared at his elbow, tablet in hand. "The Jade Dragons are moving on the port territory." West took a slow sip of his whiskey, letting the burn center him. "Double the guards. I want eyes on every shipment." "And the nurse?" West's jaw tightened. "What about her? She's a variable. She's treated half their mid-level guys in the past month. If they realize she might have information, she doesn't have information. She's a nurse doing her job. With respect, boss, they won't see it that way. To them, she's a witness, a potential leak." Min hesitated. "She's vulnerable." West's hand tightened on his glass. He knew Min was right. The Jade Dragons were ruthless, paranoid, and currently desperate. If they even suspected that Isabella knew something, even if she didn't, she'd become a target. "Keep eyes on her," West ordered. "Discreetly. If anyone so much as looks at her wrong, I want to know immediately." Min nodded and withdrew, leaving West alone with his whiskey and his thoughts. He should stay away from Isabella Martinez. Should let his men handle the surveillance and keep his distance. She was an innocent, had no place in his world of violence and shadows. But West had spent his entire adult life denying himself things he wanted, sacrificing personal desires for duty, for loyalty, for power. And for the first time in years, he wanted something, someone, that wasn't about business or obligation. He wanted her safe. He wanted her close. He wanted those kind eyes looking at him like he was a man and not a monster. What West wanted, West usually got. But he'd learned patience long ago, learned to wait for the perfect moment to strike. So he would wait, watch from the shadows, keep her safe without her knowing, until the moment came when he could step into the light and make her his, whether she agreed or not. The text message came at 2:47 a.m., jarring Isabella awake from the first real sleep she'd managed in days. Unknown number. "Don't go to work tomorrow. Trust me." Isabella stared at her phone screen, her exhausted brain struggling to process. West. The business card she'd kept but never used. How did he have her number? Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, a dozen questions fighting to be typed. Before she could send anything, another message appeared. "Unknown number, you're in danger. I'll explain everything, but right now you need to stay home." "Isabella, how did you get my number?" "Unknown number. That's really your question? Not why you're in danger?" "Fair point," Isabella admitted. She sat up in bed, her heart pounding. The smart thing would be to call the police. The sensible thing would be to ignore this message and go to work as planned. Instead, she typed, "What kind of danger?" The reply came instantly, as if he'd been waiting for her to ask. "Unknown number. The kind that means I need to see you. Now. I'm outside your building." Isabella's blood ran cold. She crept to her window, pulled back the curtain just an inch, and looked down at the street. Sure enough, a sleek black car sat at the curb, its engine running, fog swirling around it like something out of a movie. "Isabella, this is insane. I don't even know you." "Unknown number. You know enough. And right now, I'm the only thing standing between you and people who want to hurt you. Please, Isabella, trust me." The use of her full name, the please, that word that seemed to cost him so much, made her decision. Isabella had always had good instincts about people, even when those instincts led her into complicated situations. Against every ounce of common sense she possessed, she got dressed. 5 minutes later, Isabella slid into the back seat of West's car, her heart hammering so hard she was sure he could hear it. The interior was all leather and luxury, and West himself looked unfairly composed for 3 in the morning, wearing dark slacks and a dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms decorated with intricate tattoos. "Talk," Isabella demanded, proud that her voice didn't shake. "And it better be good, because this is seriously messed up." West's driver pulled away from the curb without being told, and Isabella watched her apartment building disappear into the fog. "3 weeks ago you treated a patient with a gunshot wound," West began without preamble. "Jade dragon tattoo on his left arm. You also treated 2 others with similar ink, one with a dislocated shoulder, one with stab wounds." "I treat a lot of patients," Isabella said carefully. "I don't memorize their tattoos." "I know, but they remember you." West turned to face her fully, and in the dim light of the car, his eyes were black as midnight. "The Jade Dragons are in a war with my organization. Anyone associated with me, anyone who might have information about my operations, they're targets. But I don't have information. I don't even know what your organization does. They don't know that. They just know you've treated their wounded, which means you might have overheard something, seen something." His jaw tightened. "To them, you're a loose end that needs tying up." Isabella's stomach lurched. "This is insane. I'm a nurse. I treat everyone the same. I don't take sides in whatever gang war. It's not about sides, it's about perception and paranoia." West leaned closer, and Isabella caught his scent. That cologne she'd been dreaming about. "They've been watching you for 3 days. Tonight they plan to grab you after your shift." "How do you know that?" "Because I've been watching them watch you." Something flickered in his eyes. Possessiveness, maybe. Or anger. "I've had people protecting you without your knowledge for the past week." That's... Isabella struggled for words. "That's stalking. That's survival." West didn't apologize, didn't look even slightly remorseful. "And it saved your life tonight." The car pulled up to a gate that opened automatically, revealing a long driveway leading to a mansion that took Isabella's breath away. Even in the darkness, she could see it was massive, all clean lines and modern architecture, perched on a hill with views that probably cost more than she'd make in 10 lifetimes. "Where are we?" Isabella asked, though she already knew the answer. "My home, the only place in San Francisco where you're completely safe." West opened his door and came around to hers, offering his hand. "I know this is a lot. I know you have no reason to trust me. But right now I'm asking you to give me 1 night to explain everything and figure out our next move." "Our next move?" Isabella ignored his offered hand and climbed out herself. "There is no our. You're going to explain what's happening. I'm going to figure out how to handle it, and then I'm going home." West's lips quirked in that almost smile. "You're tougher than you look. I'm a nurse working in an emergency room in San Francisco. Tough comes with the job description." Isabella crossed her arms, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. "And now, are we going to stand in your driveway all night, or are you going to explain how my life turned into a crime thriller?" West led her inside, and Isabella tried not to gawk at the sheer luxury of it all. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the bay, where the Golden Gate Bridge was just beginning to emerge from the fog. The furniture was modern and expensive, the art on the walls probably worth more than her student loans. "Coffee?" West asked, heading toward a kitchen that looked like it belonged in a magazine. "It's 3 in the morning." "That's not a no." Despite everything, Isabella almost laughed. "Fine. Coffee. And answers. Lots of answers." Over the next hour, as dawn started to paint the sky pink and gold, West explained his world. He didn't glorify it, didn't make excuses. He told her about the Beck organization, about territorial disputes, about the Jade Dragon's recent aggression. He told her about codes of conduct, about honor among thieves, about violence that was calculated rather than random. "You're telling me you're a crime boss," Isabella said when he finished. I prefer businessman with unconventional methods, West replied, deadpan. That's not funny. It wasn't meant to be. He set down his coffee cup, his expression serious. I'm telling you this because you need to understand what's at stake. The Jade Dragons won't stop looking for you. Going back to your apartment, going to work, it's not safe. So what am I supposed to do, hide forever? No, you stay here under my protection until I eliminate the threat. Eliminate? Isabella's voice rose. You mean kill people? I mean handle the situation. West's voice was calm, implacable. This is my world, Isabella. And like it or not, you're in it now. No. Isabella stood up, her chair scraping against the expensive floors. No, I'm not some damsel in distress for you to lock away in your tower. I have a life, a job, responsibilities. You have a grandmother in St. Mary's nursing home who depends on you. Rent that's 2 months overdue. Student loans that would take you 20 years to pay off. West stood too, moving closer until Isabella had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. I know everything about you, Isabella Martinez. And I know that if you go back out there, you're dead within 48 hours. You don't know that. Yes, West said quietly, dangerously. I do. They stood there, inches apart, Isabella's chest heaving with anger and fear, and something else she didn't want to name. This close, she could see the flecks of amber in West's dark eyes, could feel the heat radiating from his body. Why do you even care? She whispered. You don't know me. No, West agreed. But I want to. The honesty in his voice, the intensity in his gaze, it was too much. Isabella turned away, walking to the windows where the sun was now fully up, painting San Francisco in shades of gold and shadow. I can't just abandon my life. You can't have a life if you're dead. West came to stand beside her, not touching but close enough that she felt his presence like a physical thing. Stay, just for a few days while I handle this. Let me keep you safe. And then what? I just go back to normal? Then we figure it out. He turned to look at her, and something in his expression made Isabella's breath catch. Together. It was the together that broke her. The suggestion that she wasn't alone in this, that someone else would share the burden. Isabella had been alone for so long, fighting every battle by herself, that the offer felt like coming home after years in the wilderness. 1 week, she heard herself say. You have 1 week to handle this, and then I'm going back to my life whether it's safe or not. West's smile was small but genuine, transforming his face from handsome to devastating. 1 week, he agreed. He was lying, of course. They both knew it. West had no intention of letting Isabella walk back into danger in a week, and Isabella, despite her words, felt the shift happening between them, the dangerous pull of attraction, the magnetic force that seemed to draw them together. She should have run, should have called the police, her friends, anyone. Instead, she watched the sunrise over San Francisco with a crime boss standing beside her, and wondered when her life had turned into something she no longer recognized. West showed her to a guest room that was bigger than her entire apartment, with an ensuite bathroom that looked like a spa. There are clothes in the closet, he said. They should fit. Get some rest. We'll talk more when you wake up. Whose clothes? Isabella asked, a spike of something that might have been jealousy twisting in her gut. My sister's. She stays here sometimes when she visits from Seoul. West paused in the doorway. There hasn't been anyone else, Isabella. Not for a long time. Why he felt the need to tell her that, neither of them examined too closely. After he left, Isabella explored the room, touching expensive fabrics and breathing in air that smelled of luxury and safety. She found a silk robe in the bathroom, a shower with 6 different settings, towels so soft they felt like clouds. She should have been terrified, should have been planning her escape. Instead, as she crawled between sheets that probably cost more than her monthly salary, Isabella felt something she hadn't felt in years. Safe. Outside her door, West stood guard until he heard her breathing even out in sleep. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Minjin, accelerate the timeline. I want the Jade Dragons dealt with in 72 hours, not a week. Boss, that's ambitious. I don't care if it's ambitious. I want this finished. West's voice was cold, commanding. She stays safe, whatever it takes. He ended the call and returned to his position outside Isabella's door. He had security throughout the house, armed guards at every entrance. She was as safe as he could make her, but it wasn't enough. Wouldn't be enough until every threat was eliminated, and Isabella understood that she belonged here, with him, where he could keep her safe forever. West had always been patient, always been strategic, but Isabella Martinez, with her kind eyes and stubborn jaw, with her strength wrapped in softness. She made him want to throw strategy out the window and simply take, claim, possess. Soon, he promised himself, soon she would understand that she was his to protect, his to keep, his. Isabella woke to the smell of coffee and something else, something savory and delicious that made her stomach growl. For a moment, she forgot where she was, reaching automatically for her phone alarm that should have been blaring by now. Then memory returned in a rush. The midnight message, West's car, the revelation that her life had somehow become a target. She sat up, taking in the unfamiliar luxury of the guest room in daylight. Afternoon light, she realized, checking her phone. She'd slept for nearly 12 hours, 47 missed calls from the hospital, 23 texts from Jasmine. Her inbox was an explosion of worry and confusion. There was a soft knock on the door. "You're awake," West's voice came through. "May I come in?" Isabella wrapped herself in the silk robe, suddenly conscious of how little she wore beneath it. "Yes." West entered carrying a tray laden with food, eggs, toast, fruit, and the source of that savory smell. Kimchi jjigae, a Korean stew she recognized from a brief fling with a Korean-American doctor during her residency. "You made this?" she asked, surprised. "Don't sound so shocked. I'm not completely useless in the kitchen." He set the tray on the bed, and Isabella noticed he'd changed into black pants and a white button-down with the sleeves rolled up. Casual West was somehow more dangerous than suited West. "You need to eat. You're running on fumes. I need to call the hospital, and Jasmine, and—" "Already handled." West pulled out his phone, showing her text conversations. "I had my assistant call the hospital with a family emergency. Your friend Jasmine has been told you're visiting your grandmother, and your phone died. Everything's covered. You can't just—" Isabella stopped, frustrated. "You can't just arrange my life without asking me." "I can when your life depends on it." West sat on the edge of the bed, close enough that Isabella caught his scent. "Eat first. Be angry at me later." The food was delicious, and Isabella was hungrier than she'd realized. She ate in silence while West watched, his gaze intense and unwavering. "This is really good," she admitted grudgingly. "My mother's recipe." She insisted all her children learn to cook traditional foods. Something soft entered his expression. She said a man who couldn't feed himself was only half a man. Smart woman. She was. Past tense. West's jaw tightened briefly before he controlled his expression. "She died when I was 19. Cancer. I'm sorry." Isabella knew loss intimately. Her mother had died when she was 15. Her father long gone before that. It was just her and Abuela now, and Abuela's mind was slowly slipping away into the fog of dementia. "Tell me about your grandmother," West said, as if reading her thoughts. So Isabella did. She told him about Abuela Rosa, who'd raised her after her mother died, who'd worked 3 jobs to put Isabella through nursing school. She told him about the stories Abuela used to tell of their family back in Puerto Rico, of ancestors who'd survived slavery and hurricanes and poverty with dignity intact. "She doesn't always remember me now," Isabella said quietly. "Some days I'm her daughter. Some days I'm a stranger. But I visit every week because on the good days when she knows me, her whole face lights up. That's why you work so hard. The nursing home costs. St. Mary's is the best facility in San Francisco. She deserves the best." Isabella met his eyes. "I'd work 100 double shifts if it meant she was comfortable." "You don't have to." West's voice was careful, controlled. "I can arrange—" "No." Isabella cut him off firmly. "I don't need your money. I'm not some charity case. That's not what I meant, isn't it? Rich man helps poor struggling nurse." Isabella heard the bitterness in her own voice and hated it. "I know how this looks, West. I know what you must think. I think you're the strongest woman I've ever met." West's words stopped her mid-sentence. "I think you work yourself to death taking care of everyone else and never ask for help. I think you're proud and stubborn and so fucking beautiful it hurts to look at you." Isabella's breath caught. "West, I know you don't want my money. I respect that." He moved closer, and Isabella's heart raced. "But let me help anyway. Not because you need it, but because I want to. Because in the 5 days I've been watching you, you've become something I never expected." "What's that?" "Important." The word hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Isabella should have pulled back, should have reminded him this was temporary, that she had a life waiting for her beyond this golden cage. Instead, she asked, "Why me?" West was silent for a long moment, his dark eyes searching hers. "I've spent 15 years in this life," he finally said. 15 years of violence and shadows, of making decisions that keep me awake at night. I've forgotten what it's like to be around someone genuinely good, someone who helps others without expecting anything in return. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and traced her jawline with one finger. You walked into that ER every night exhausted, barely able to stand, and you still treated every patient with kindness. Gang members who'd probably killed people, you looked at them and saw human beings who needed help. That's just being a nurse. No, that's being you. His thumb brushed her lower lip, and Isabella shivered. I've been in darkness so long, Isabella, and then you collapsed and I caught you, and for one moment I held something pure and bright and good. I'm not letting that go. I'm not letting you go. That's not your choice to make. But Isabella's voice was breathless, her body betraying her words by leaning into his touch. Tell me you don't feel this, West challenged softly. Tell me you don't feel the pull between us, and I'll take you home right now. I'll put guards on you from a distance, and I'll never touch you again. Isabella should have told him exactly that. Should have demanded her freedom, but she'd never been good at lying, especially to herself. I feel it, she whispered, but that doesn't mean it's right. You're a criminal, West. The things you do are unforgivable. I know. His hand dropped away, and Isabella immediately missed its warmth. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not even asking you to accept my world. I'm just asking for time. Let me protect you. Let me know you. Before Isabella could respond, West's phone buzzed. He checked it, and his expression hardened into something cold and dangerous. What is it? Isabella asked, fear spiking in her chest. The Jade Dragons made a move. They grabbed someone from the hospital asking about you. West was already moving, pulling on a jacket that Isabella suspected hid weapons. Stay here. Don't open the door for anyone but me. Who did they grab? West. Who? He paused at the door, and the look he gave her was full of barely controlled rage. Your friend Jasmine. Isabella's world tilted. No, this is my fault. I have to. You have to stay here where you're safe. West's voice was hard, commanding. I will get your friend back. I promise you that. But I need to know you're safe, Isabella. I can't focus if I'm worried about you. You can't just leave me here not knowing. I can, and I will. He crossed back to her in 2 strides, gripping her shoulders. This is my world, remember. This is what I do. Trust me to handle it. I barely know you. Then start learning. West pulled her forward and pressed a hard, brief kiss to her forehead. I'll bring her back. I swear it on everything I am. Then he was gone, leaving Isabella alone in a stranger's mansion with fear eating a hole in her stomach and the phantom warmth of his kiss burning her skin. She paced the room for 5 minutes before making a decision. She wasn't some damsel to be locked away while others fought her battles. If Jasmine was in danger because of her, then Isabella was damn well going to help. She found her clothes from last night, wrinkled but wearable, and dressed quickly. The house seemed empty, but she moved cautiously, expecting guards at every corner. She found none. Either West had pulled all his people to help with Jasmine, or he'd vastly underestimated Isabella's determination. She made it to the front door before a voice stopped her. Going somewhere. Isabella spun to find a young woman standing in the hallway, early 20s, beautiful, with the same dark eyes as West and an expression of amused interest. Who are you? Isabella demanded. Jeon Beck, West's sister. The woman tilted her head, studying Isabella. And you must be the nurse my brother has lost his mind over. I'm not. He hasn't. Isabella stopped, frustrated. Your brother kidnapped me. Protected you from what I hear. Different things. Ji-un moved closer, and Isabella noticed she moved with the same predatory grace as West. You were about to walk out into a situation that would get you killed. That's not brave, that's stupid. My friend is currently fine, if scared. The Jade Dragons want information, not blood. Yet, Ji-un's expression sobered. But if you go rushing in playing hero, you'll give them exactly what they want. Leverage against my brother. Is that what you want? I want my friend safe. Then trust West to make that happen. He's very good at what he does. Ji-un studied her nails casually. Besides, he'd kill me if I let you leave. And I'm rather fond of living. Isabella wanted to argue, wanted to fight. But Ji-un was right. She had no idea where Jasmine was being held. No plan, no resources. She'd just get herself killed or captured. I hate this, Isabella said through gritted teeth. I hate feeling helpless. Welcome to caring about someone in this life. Ji-un's voice held unexpected sympathy. It doesn't get easier. Come on, I'll make us tea. Korean style. and I'll tell you about the time West punched a man for disrespecting our mother. That should give you some idea of what he's capable of when someone threatens something he considers his. I'm not his. Ji-eun's smile was knowing. Keep telling yourself that. Maybe eventually you'll believe it. Across the city, in a warehouse by the docks, West stood facing 3 Jade Dragon lieutenants, Min at his back, and 10 armed men surrounding them. The woman, West said calmly, though fury boiled beneath his skin. Release her, and maybe I let you live. Big talk for someone outnumbered, one of the lieutenants, a man with a scar bisecting his face, sneered. Am I? West pulled out his phone, pressed a button, and suddenly the warehouse was surrounded by twice as many of his own men, appearing from the shadows like wraiths. Release her now. The negotiation was brief and brutal. West made it clear that Jasmine's harm would result in a war the Jade Dragons couldn't win. He made it clearer that his restraint had limits, and they'd reached them. 20 minutes later, a terrified but unharmed Jasmine was released into Min's custody. Tell your boss, West said to the retreating Jade Dragons, his voice carrying across the warehouse, that the nurse is under my protection. Any move against her or anyone she cares about is a move against me, and I promise, that's not a war you'll survive. Back at the mansion, Isabella paced while Ji-eun watched with amusement, both women nursing their 3rd cup of tea. He'll bring her back, Ji-eun assured her. West doesn't make promises he can't keep. How do you live like this? The constant danger? The violence? You get used to it, or you leave. Ji-eun's expression turned serious. But, Isabella, if you're going to be part of West's life, you need to understand something. He will protect you with everything he has. He will burn down the city to keep you safe, but he can't protect you from himself, from this world. That's a choice only you can make. Before Isabella could respond, the front door opened. West strode in, and behind him, shaken but whole, was Jasmine. Bella! Jasmine ran forward, and Isabella caught her in a fierce hug. Are you okay? Did they hurt you? No, just scared me shitless. Jasmine pulled back, looking between Isabella and West with wide eyes. Girl, what the hell have you gotten yourself into? It's complicated, Isabella managed. Understatement of the century. Jasmine's hands shook, and Isabella noticed bruises forming on her wrists. They kept asking about you, about what you knew, about who you talked to. I didn't know what to tell them. You told them nothing because there's nothing to tell. West's voice was gentle, despite his intimidating presence. You're safe now. My men will take you anywhere you want to go. I'm not leaving Bella. Jasmine's jaw set stubbornly in a way Isabella recognized. Jasmine, no. Whatever this is, whatever you're involved in, I'm not abandoning you. Jasmine grabbed Isabella's hands. We're sisters in everything but blood. You don't get to push me away for my own safety. Isabella looked at West helplessly. He sighed, running a hand through his hair in the first sign of frustration she'd seen from him. Fine, you can stay. But you follow my rules, both of you. His gaze swept between them. No leaving the property without guards. No contact with anyone outside this house. No arguments about security measures. Agreed. Isabella wanted to fight, wanted to argue about her independence and autonomy, but Jasmine had been grabbed because of her. The Jade Dragons knew who she was, where she lived, who she cared about. She wasn't safe. Neither was anyone close to her. Agreed, Isabella said quietly. Good. West looked at Min. Get them settled. And double the perimeter guards. He started to leave, and Isabella found herself calling out, West! He turned, and she saw the exhaustion beneath his controlled exterior, the worry he'd been hiding. Thank you, she said simply, for bringing her back. Something flickered in his eyes, relief maybe, or satisfaction. I told you I would. I keep my promises, Isabella. Always. After he left, Jasmine turned to Isabella with wide eyes. Okay, start talking. Who is that man? And why does he look at you like you're his last meal and his salvation all at once? I don't know, Isabella admitted, but I'm starting to think I'm in way more danger than I realized. From the Jade Dragons? No? Isabella watched the doorway where West had disappeared. From him. 3 days passed in a strange domestic bubble. Isabella and Jasmine stayed in West's mansion, protected by armed guards, and waited on by a silent staff. West himself was often gone, handling what he vaguely referred to as business, but when he was home his attention rarely left Isabella. It was suffocating and intoxicating all at once. He's obsessed with you, Jasmine observed on the 4th morning, watching West from across the breakfast table. He sat reading something on his tablet, but his gaze kept drifting to Isabella like a compass finding north. Like, genuinely obsessed. Don't be ridiculous. But Isabella's cheeks warmed. Girl, I've seen the way he looks at you. That man would murder someone if they looked at you wrong. Actually, Jasmine paused, thinking, he probably has murdered people. Should we be concerned about that? Probably, Isabella admitted. But what am I supposed to do? Walk out and hope the jade dragons don't grab me? The situation had escalated. 2 days ago, the jade dragons had tried to breach West's property. His guards had repelled them, but the message was clear. They weren't giving up. I've made arrangements, West said, setting down his tablet. The jade dragons' leadership has agreed to a meeting. Tomorrow night. Neutral ground. What kind of meeting? Isabella asked, alarm bells ringing. The kind where this ends. West's voice was calm, but Isabella heard the steel beneath. I'm offering them a choice. Peace or war. After tomorrow, you'll be able to go back to your life. Just like that. Just like that. But nothing was ever just like that, and they all knew it. That night, Isabella couldn't sleep. She wandered the mansion, eventually finding herself on the terrace overlooking San Francisco Bay. The Golden Gate Bridge glowed in the distance, and fog rolled in off the water like something alive. Couldn't sleep either. Isabella turned to find West emerging from the shadows. He'd shed his usual formal wear for dark jeans and a black t-shirt that highlighted his lean, muscled frame. The casual look made him somehow more dangerous, more real. Thinking about tomorrow, Isabella admitted. Don't. West came to stand beside her at the railing. That's my concern, not yours. How can it not be my concern? You're doing this because of me. I'm doing this because the Jade Dragons crossed a line when they threatened you. West turned to look at her, and the intensity in his gaze stole Isabella's breath. Do you understand what you've become to me? West, in 15 years of this life, I've never let anyone get close. Never allowed myself to care about anything beyond duty and survival. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb stroking her cheek with devastating gentleness. And then I caught you when you fell, and everything changed. We barely know each other, but Isabella leaned into his touch, helpless against the pull between them. I know you work yourself to exhaustion for people who'll never appreciate it. I know you hide your fear behind stubbornness. I know you haven't had anyone to lean on in so long you've forgotten how. West stepped closer, and Isabella's back hit the railing. I know you feel this too, this thing between us, and it terrifies you as much as it terrifies me. I'm not terrified of you. The lie was obvious. No? West's other hand came up to brace beside her on the railing, caging her in. Then why is your heart racing? Why are you looking at me like you can't decide whether to run or surrender? Because you're a criminal. Because this whole situation is insane. Because... Isabella's breath hitched as West leaned closer, his lips a whisper away from hers. Because you want me anyway, he finished softly, despite every logical reason not to. He was right, and they both knew it. Isabella had spent 3 days trying to convince herself that this attraction was just adrenaline, just proximity, just the intensity of the situation. But standing here with West surrounding her, his scent filling her lungs, and his warmth seeping into her skin, she couldn't lie anymore. This is a mistake, she whispered. Probably. West's lips brushed hers, feather light, testing. Tell me to stop, Isabella. Tell me you don't want this, and I'll walk away. I'll keep you safe, get you home, and never touch you again. It was the out she needed, the escape route from a situation that could only end badly. Isabella grabbed his shirt and pulled him closer. The kiss exploded between them, all the tension and fear and desire of the past days igniting like wildfire. West's hands tangled in her hair, tilting her head back to deepen the kiss, and Isabella met him with equal desperation. She felt the controlled power in his body, the strength he kept carefully leashed, and something in her thrilled to know she could unravel his control. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, West rested his forehead against hers. Tell me this isn't just the situation, he said roughly. Tell me you feel this too. I feel it. Isabella's hands fisted in his shirt. I don't want to, but I do. Good. West's smile was fierce and possessive. Because I'm keeping you, Isabella Martinez. Tomorrow I end the threat, and then I'm going to spend every day proving to you that you belong here, with me. I have a life. You have a life where you work yourself to death and never have time for anything but survival. Stay with me and I'll give you the world. His eyes blazed with intensity. Your grandmother will have the best care possible. You'll never have to work another double shift unless you want to. You can actually live instead of just surviving. I don't want your money." But Isabella's resolve was weakening. "I'm not offering money. I'm offering myself." West kissed her again, slower this time, thorough and claiming. "Stay with me. Be mine. Let me take care of you the way you take care of everyone else." It was madness. It was impossible. It was everything Isabella had secretly wanted since the moment West caught her when she fell. Someone strong enough to share her burdens, someone who looked at her like she was precious instead of convenient. "One condition," Isabella heard herself say. "Name it. I keep working. Not the double shifts, not the insane hours, but I keep being a nurse. That's who I am, West. I can't just become some kept woman." West's smile was slow and satisfied. "Deal. You can work at any hospital you want. Hell, I'll buy you a hospital if that's what you need. Just say yes." "This is crazy." "The best things usually are." West pulled her closer, and Isabella felt his heart racing to match hers. "Say yes, Isabella. Let me keep you." She should have said no. Should have demanded her independence, her freedom from this golden cage. Instead, she whispered, "Yes." The word had barely left her lips before West was kissing her again, deeper this time, claiming and celebrating. Isabella surrendered to it, to him, to the impossible situation that had somehow become her new reality. Tomorrow, West would face the Jade Dragons. Tomorrow, he would end the threat and make it safe for her to exist in his world. Tonight, Isabella let herself believe in fairy tales and dangerous men with gentle hands and promises that sounded too good to be true. The next evening arrived too quickly. West had been gone since dawn, making preparations. Jasmine had been moved to a safe house with round-the-clock protection. Isabella was alone in the mansion with Jiun, who'd arrived that morning to keep her company. "He's going to be fine," Jiun assured her for the 15th time. "West has survived worse." "That's not as comforting as you think it is." Isabella paced the living room, checking her phone obsessively. "He'll call when it's done. He always does." Jiun watched her with those dark back eyes that saw too much. "You're in love with him. I barely know him." That wasn't a no. Isabella stopped pacing. Was she in love with West? It seemed impossible after less than a week, but she couldn't deny the way her heart clenched at the thought of him in danger, the way she'd memorized every detail of his face, the way she felt safe and terrified and alive all at once when he was near. "I don't know what I feel," Isabella admitted. "But whatever it is, it's too much, too fast." "Love doesn't follow timelines." Jiun stood, moving to look out at the darkening bay. "My brother has spent 15 years alone. He's had women, sure, but never someone who mattered. And then you collapsed and he caught you, and suddenly he had something worth protecting beyond territory and honor." He said something similar. "Because it's true." Jiun turned back to her. "The question isn't whether you love him, Isabella. The question is whether you're brave enough to stay when you realize just how dark his world can get." Before Isabella could respond, her phone rang. West's name flashed on the screen. "It's done." His voice came through, rough but alive. "The Jade Dragons have agreed to peace terms. You're safe." Relief flooded through her so intensely, Isabella had to sit down. "You're okay?" "Unharmed." The negotiations were tense, but successful. A pause. "I'm coming home. To you. Home. To you." Two simple phrases that rewrote Isabella's entire world. "I'll be here," she promised. An hour later, West walked through the door, and Isabella was in his arms before she could think better of it. He held her tight, his face buried in her hair, and she felt the tension drain from his body. "It's really over?" she asked. "It's over. The Jade Dragons have bigger problems than one nurse who doesn't even know what she saw. I've guaranteed your safety as part of our treaty." West pulled back to look at her. "You can go back to your life now, back to work, your apartment, everything." It was what she'd wanted, what she'd demanded. Freedom. So why did it feel like loss? "And if I don't want to go back?" Isabella heard herself ask. West went very still. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying—" Isabella took a breath, stepping into the unknown. "I'm saying maybe I want to stay. Maybe I want to see where this goes. Maybe I'm tired of just surviving and ready to actually live." "Isabella," West's voice was raw with emotion, "you need to be sure. Once you're mine, I won't let you go easily. I'm not a good man, and this world isn't safe." "I know." Isabella reached up to frame his face with her hands. "I know what you are, West. I know the risks. And I'm choosing this anyway. I'm choosing you." The kiss that followed was different from their first, less desperate, more certain. It was a promise and a surrender, a beginning and a claiming. "You're mine now," West said against her lips. "I need to hear you say it. I'm yours." And saying it felt like freedom instead of captivity. But West, yes, you're mine too. That's how this works. West's smile was brilliant and unguarded, transforming his face into something beautiful and almost boyish. Deal. Later that night, as they sat on the terrace where they'd first kissed, Isabella called her grandmother's nursing home. West had already paid off her entire balance and set up a trust to cover all future expenses. When Isabella had protested, he'd simply said, "She raised you, that makes her important to me too." How could Isabella resist a man like that? "What happens now?" she asked, tucked into West's side as fog rolled in off the bay. "Now you move in properly. We find you a position at a hospital where you can work reasonable hours. You meet the rest of my family. They're going to love you, by the way. My mother would have loved you." West's arm tightened around her. "And we build a life together." "Just like that?" "Just like that." West tilted her chin up to look at him. "I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. But Isabella, I've spent 15 years in darkness. You're my light. I'm not letting that go. Even when I'm stubborn and argumentative. Especially then." He kissed her softly. "I don't want someone who agrees with everything I say. I want you, all of you, including the parts that drive me crazy." Isabella thought about her life before West, the endless shifts, the constant exhaustion, the loneliness she'd carried like a second skin. And then she thought about this new possibility, a life where she was protected but not imprisoned, where she could be herself but wasn't alone. "Okay," she said, "let's try this, let's build something together. No more double shifts. No more double shifts." Isabella smiled. "But I'm keeping my own bank account. Wouldn't have it any other way. And we're dating properly. Dinner, movies, the whole thing. I'll take you anywhere you want to go. And you have to meet Jasmine for coffee and convince her you're not going to murder me in my sleep." West laughed, the sound rich and genuine. "That might take more than coffee, but I'll try." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights reflect off the bay. In the distance, a ship's horn sounded, lonely and beautiful. "West," Isabella said softly. Thank you for catching me when I fell." He turned to look at her, his eyes reflecting the city lights. Isabella Martinez, collapsed at the hospital, and the Korean Mafia boss who lifted her never let her go again. That's our story. "That's our story," Isabella agreed and kissed him as the fog wrapped around them like a blessing. She'd fallen and he'd caught her, and neither of them would ever let go. Years had passed, though neither Isabella nor West kept precise track anymore. Time had become something they measured in moments rather than days. The moment West finally met Abuela Rosa on a good day, and she'd gripped his hand, declaring him a good man with sad eyes but a strong heart. The moment Isabella walked into the new community clinic West had built in the Mission District, where she could serve the people who needed her most. The moment they stood before his family and soul, and his grandmother had blessed their union with tears in her eyes. The mansion in Pacific Heights had become a home. Isabella's touches were everywhere. Plants in the windows, photos on the walls, her nursing textbooks mixing with his business documents. Jasmine had become a fixture, moving into a guest house on the property and working as a victim advocate for women escaping dangerous situations. She'd found her calling, she said, after her own brush with danger. West's world hadn't changed. He was still the head of the Beck organization, still made decisions that kept Isabella awake some nights, but he'd changed. His people noticed it. The way he smiled more, laughed easier, the way he'd established strict rules against human trafficking and started legitimate businesses that could provide good jobs for people like Isabella had been, desperate, hard-working, deserving of better. "You've made him softer," Ji-Yun had observed during one of her visits. "No," Isabella had corrected. "I've given him permission to be who he already was beneath all the armor." On a morning that felt no different from any other, Isabella stood on their terrace watching the fog burn off the bay. She felt West's arms come around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" he murmured. "How different my life is now. How if someone had told me a few years ago that I'd be living here with you, I would have thought they were insane. Regrets? Not even one." Isabella turned in his arms to face him. "Well, maybe one." West's expression turned serious. "Tell me. I regret that it took collapsing from exhaustion for us to meet. I wish I'd found you sooner." We found each other when we were meant to. West kissed her forehead, her nose, her lips. Everything before was just preparation for this. That's very philosophical for a crime boss. You bring out my poetic side. His hands settled on her waist, warm and possessive. Among other things. Isabella laughed, the sound free and genuine in a way that still surprised her sometimes. This life shouldn't work. A nurse and a mafia boss, light and darkness, completely different worlds colliding. But somehow it did work, perfectly imperfect, because they'd chosen each other and kept choosing each other every day. I have something to tell you, Isabella said, her heart suddenly racing. West pulled back to look at her, concern flickering in his eyes. What is it? I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air between them. West went absolutely still, his eyes widening, his hands tightening on her waist. We're... He seemed unable to finish the sentence. About 8 weeks along. I found out yesterday. Isabella watched his face anxiously. They'd never explicitly talked about children, about expanding their unconventional family. West, say something. Instead of words, West dropped to his knees on the terrace, pressing his face to her stomach, his arms wrapped around her waist. Isabella felt him shaking and realized with shock that he was crying, this dangerous man who'd built an empire on strength and control, undone by the promise of new life. West? She ran her fingers through his hair, her own tears starting to fall. I never thought... His voice was muffled against her stomach. I never let myself hope for something like this. Something normal and good and... He looked up at her, and the raw emotion in his eyes stole her breath. You've given me everything, Isabella. Everything I never knew I needed, and now this. Is that a yes? You're happy? West stood, cupping her face in his hands, his thumbs wiping away her tears, even as his own fell unchecked. I'm terrified and overwhelmed and more happy than I've ever been in my entire life. You're having my child, Isabella. We're having a child. He kissed her then, tender and reverent, and Isabella felt the last piece of her old life fall away completely. This was her world now. This man, this love, this future they were building together. We need to increase security, West said suddenly, pulling back, his mind already working. And you're cutting back your hours at the clinic. And we need to... West, Isabella put a finger to his lips. Breathe. We have time. Time, West repeated, then laughed, sounding slightly hysterical. We're having a baby, Isabella. I'm going to be a father. I don't know how to be a father. Good thing you have 9 months to figure it out. Isabella smiled, pulling him close again. We'll figure it out together, just like we figured out everything else. They stood there on the terrace as the sun climbed higher, burning away the last of the fog, revealing San Francisco in all its messy, beautiful glory. Below them, the city moved and breathed, full of people fighting their own battles, chasing their own dreams. Isabella thought about the woman she'd been, exhausted, alone, barely surviving. She thought about the moment she'd collapsed, feeling herself fall, and the strong arms that had caught her. West had promised he would never let her go. He'd kept that promise every single day since, and now they would keep that promise together, for the child they would bring into this imperfect, dangerous, beautiful world they'd built. I love you, Isabella said, the words still thrilling even after years of saying them. I love you, West replied, as he always did, like it was the most important truth in his life, because it was. She'd collapsed at the hospital, and the Korean mafia boss who lifted her had never let her go again. And Isabella had never wanted him to.